Please standing up. Deputy Mayor Proud, if you'd like to read out the opening prayer for us, thanks.
Almighty God, we ask you to guide us in all our discussions, to show honesty, understanding and goodness and wisdom in all that we undertake to do. May we respect each other's views at all times, and we ask all of this in your name. Amen.
Councillor Lagan, would you mind reading the acknowledgement of country, please?
On behalf of councillors, we would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, on which this meeting is taking place, and show our respects for elders past, present and emerging.
Thank you. You can take your seats. Without prior approval, any recording of this meeting is prohibited. No action should be taken on any resolution of council prior to written advice from the city being received. We now move to item 1, which is the official opening. Ladies and gentlemen, I declare the council meeting of the 20th of June 2023 open at 6:31 p.m. Item 2, attendance and apologies. I have nothing. 3, leave of absence. I have nil. 4, disclosure of interest. There were no disclosures at the Audit Committee meeting or the Community and Resources meeting. Councillors, are there any disclosures for this evening? Yes, Councillor Migdal? No? I'll just keep an eye on it through the meeting, and if there is, we'll expect those disclosures. 5, petitions. Item 5.1, Councillor Ferrante, would you like to table the petition proposed development application for 2 and 8 Adair Parade in Coolbinia, please?
Yes, Mr Mayor, the City has received the following petition containing 293 verified signatures. We, the undersigned, do respectfully request that the Council, number 1, not compromise on the following outstanding matters in respect to the proposed development application for 2 and 8 Adair Parade, Coolbinia. A, waste removal and use of the rear Kiln Lane. B, goods delivered to the commercial premises, including the use of the rear of Kiln Lane. C, parking for commercial staff and customers and for residential visitors. D, traffic impact of operations on Kiln Lane. And E, overlooking from the southern townhouses to neighbouring properties. Point number 2, acknowledges and addresses residents' concerns regarding overheight, overplot ratio and underparking in proposed development. And 3, calling any further response or a responsible authority report for consideration by full council. I so move.
Thank you, Councillor Ferrante. Councillors, are there any unverified petitions you would like to present this evening? Councillor Christovich.
Thank you very much, Mr Mayor. I've got a verified petition. The City has received the following petition containing 6 verified signatures. We, the residents of Arnott Street, North Beach, request that suitable and adequate alterations are made to the stormwater system and sump at 17 Arnott Street, North Beach, to stop water damage occurring to the sump's adjoining properties. I so declare.
Thank you. If you can have that presented to governance as well. If there's no other indication, I'll ask for a mover and a seconder to accept those petitions. Councillors, move Councillor Migdal, seconded Councillor Reedus. A show of hands to accept those. That's unanimous. Thank you. 6 responses to previous questions from members of the public taken on notice, and those responses are published in the minutes of that meeting. We'll now move on to item 7, which is public question time. I'll ask Mr Simon Wheeler, you're first up. Okay. Mr Wheeler's questions will be published as part of the minutes of this meeting with the answers supplied. Peter Ellis, you're next.
Good evening, Mr Mayor. Good evening, councillors. Good evening, staff and fellow ratepayers. Can you, question 1, can you please...
I just need your name and suburb.
Oh, Peter Ellis, Corrine.
I didn't think I'd have to remind you, Mr Ellis.
7, Taxel Close, Corrine. Question 1, can you please advise why one of my questions from the 30th of May 2023 council meeting was omitted from the minutes?
No, I can't.
Good.
I can only apologise and say that we'll fix that.
And do it again. Okay, that's all right, thank you. Question 2, can you please advise how many other local government CEOs have been on professional development to America?
I'm not aware. You'd have to check with those other local governments, Mr Ellis.
Well, in the response, Mr Mayor, it did say that others do go over there, and I just want to know how many.
Sure, we can try to do some investigating later.
Fantastic, thank you. Question 3, can you please advise why the green waste is not being processed by City of Stirling in conjunction with other councils via Tamala Park, and possibly even make a small profit, or even just break even?
No. Mr Murphy?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I need to talk to you, Mr. Alice, about the detail, but our green waste, we have a separate contract. We don't go through Tamala Park, and it's processed and turned into compost. So I'm not sure where you're driving with the profit question, but you know, we do process it at a low cost. But it's not through Tamala Park or Mindarie Regional Council. It's through our own contract.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I am aware of that, and okay.
Do you want to clarify your question? I'm not really sure of.
why the green waste is not being processed via Tamala Park, which was a rubbish facility that was established by several metropolitan councils.
Yes.
And why they're not doing that.
Yep. Mr. Murphy?
Okay.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. So Mindarie Regional Council exists, and as you said, it's a group of member councils, 7 member councils. It's there to process our landfill waste. Most councils do not send any other waste than what's destined for landfill. So, for example, the yellow lid bin, the green lid bin that's got garden waste in you refer to is usually the member councils don't send it through Mindarie Regional Council. They send it through their own contracts, and they do their own contracts, and it's generally cheaper that way. I think if you're inferring that it's cheaper to do it through Mindarie Regional Council, I can confirm that it's not.
Ah, good, thank you. There's another question next time. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, councillors.
Oh, happy to assist you, Mr. Ellis. Roland Hadley. Just your name and suburb, please.
Roland Hadley, Woodlands. Good evening, all. On the 10th of May 2019, I asked why the budget amount for panel beating repairs was exceeded by an average of $55,000 for the previous 5 financial years. The Mayor at that time, Mr. Irwin, said the city was continuing to focus on reducing crashes. Last year's expenditure was $178,000, and the previous year, $20,000 less. Very commendable. However, this year's estimate has blown out to $300,000. Can management please provide an explanation?
Ms. Hawkins?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Mr. Hadley. Apology, I don't have that answer on me tonight, but I'll certainly provide that in detail for you.
Thank you. I have been involved and concerned about this trackless tram project since 2005, and like many, wondered why a local government authority was involved in matters which are under normally the domain of state or federal departments. I recently emailed 9 councillors on behalf of several community groups asking on how and why this trackless tram project will, according to the Mayor, boost investor confidence, optimise business opportunities and create jobs. To date, I haven't had no replies, which suggests to me, and perhaps to others, that the council has been gagged my questions. And the question I ask now is, have the councillors been gagged on speaking on this matter?
No, I would suggest they just didn't respond to you, Mr. Hadley. Councillors, you are all welcome to respond to Mr. Hadley.
In that case, on behalf of various people I represent, I would like to get some feedback from you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hadley. Arthur, sorry, another question?
Indeed, yes. This unnecessary, expensive exercise compares to using a fleet of, well, does it compare to using a fleet of electric buses rather than spending $3 million on one trackless tram unit? The claims expressed by the Mayor in the city's amusing and bewildering trackless tram video states that Scarborough is one of the country's most iconic destinations. Thousands of passengers do not use this current bus daily from Glendorough Railway Station to Scarborough Lock Tower. Can someone please explain why this madcap idea, or the Emperor's new clothes, as many call it round about here, should not be scrapped and derailed now? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. I do question some of those figures that you presented there. The business case will show exactly the answers you're talking about. Simply though, a trackless tram is a light rail project, a mid-tier transit. It's not a transport solution like a bus is, and that's the main reason we're looking at it. It's for development outcomes. Philip Tarker, if you'd like. Oh, sorry, Arthur Mistillis.
Sorry, can I go first?
Philip Tarker.
Good evening, Mr Mayor, staff and councillors. Philip Tarker, 34 Ardras Crescent, Coolbinia. I'm just questioning on the proposed mixed-use development application 2-8 Adair Parade, Coolbinia, where it proposed 33 residential apartments, 5 commercial tenancies, including wine bar, cafe and wellness centre. I have viewed the amended plans. My first question is, noting 5 commercial tenancies, as I've said, local centre zoning, 33 residential dwellings on more than half an acre of land, is it satisfactory that no on-site waste bin collection area is given?
Ms Hughes.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for the question, Mr Tarker. As you're aware, that application is still under assessment.
Yes.
The Joint Development Assessment Panel deferred that application for consideration again, and waste arrangements is one of those reasons. So we're currently reassessing those plans.
Yeah, I am aware of that, thank you. My next question is it acceptable that the bin collection area should be placed on public land abutting a 4-lane distributor road such as Walcott Street, dangerously blocking sight lines of exiting and entering Clem Lane traffic?
Thank you. Ms Hughes.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Mr Tarker. They are all valid points, and that's part of the City Office's assessment. City officers are working with our waste team to determine what the appropriate arrangements are for this particular site.
Thank you. My next question, if you can imagine all the main streets, Walcott Street, Beaufort Street, Inglewood, Mount Lawley, Oxford Streets, etc., having that style of bin collection, isn't it the best practice option for waste collection for a development of this size in a local centre to be off a sealed right-of-way such as Clem Lane with its own bin loading and collection bay on site?
Ms Hughes.
Through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Mr Tarker. That is ideally the preference. However, each site has its own challenges and unique circumstances. As you would have seen in the amended plans, they are proposing collection from Walcott Street, and that is currently before the City for assessment.
Thank you.
Thank you for your questions. Who would you like to go next? Arthur Mastilis.
Good evening, Mr Mayor, councillors and staff.
Evening.
Arthur Mastilis, 32 Carnarvon Crescent, Coolbinia, WA. These questions are in respect to the proposed development on the corner of Adair Parade and Walcott Street, Coolbinia. Question 1. It appears from the amended plans that it is acceptable that the northern 4th and 5th level apartments should still be able to have a view clearly into the private backyards of people on Lanark Street. Is it acceptable?
Ms Hughes.
Through you, Mr Mayor. That was again one of the points that the Joint Development Assessment Panel deferred this application for, was to consider the overlooking potential. The applicant has made some changes to the plans, and I understand they have deleted a balcony which did offer that overlooking opportunity, which is currently now being assessed by officers.
Thank you. Question 2. If I had the shop next door to the proposed development on Clem Lane and Walcott Street, and I wanted to convert it to a small bar, and I was only providing 1 commercial bay, half a visitor's bay, no loading bay, and no on-site waste collection, do you think the application would get approval?
Unlikely.
Thank you. Question 3. It's a serious issue because we're not talking about pre-1960 heritage building on a small plot of land. This is massive. The proposed development will be brand new on more than half an acre, and the amended plans still show the applicant not being able to meet quite reasonable parking requirements after the discounts, not being able to provide on-site loading bay, and not being able to manage waste pickup on its own land. Given the size of the land itself and the congested street and intersection, shouldn't the city be demanding best practice from developers when it comes to these matters?
Thank you for that question, and essentially, yes. And that's why it's been reconsidered currently, and that's why the report will come back to council with council's views on those.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. Murkataka, please.
Thank you. My name's Murkataka of Ardros Crescent, Corbinia. Firstly, just on the petition, thank you, Mr Ferranti. We submitted a petition which has been verified of 293 signatures, and the Part 2 petition has 158 signatures, so that's a total of about 451, and I've still got people knocking on my door wanting to sign the petition. Just a quick note, when we did visit all the residents of Corbinia and Menora, we spoke to them about this proposed development. We asked for their thoughts and their opinions, which we wanted to hear. We educated them on the zoning, for those that didn't already know, on the local centre zoning, on the R60 zoning.
Starker, I do need you to ask questions, please.
All right, so I'm just saying these
Yes.
people were informed when they voted on that petition.
That's acknowledged.
Thank you. So obviously my questions are regarding the this development 218 Adair Parade Corbinia. I have viewed the amended plans. My question is, why is the applicant relying on valuable street parking for commercial deliveries? Shouldn't the applicant be required to provide an on-site commercial delivery or loading bay for the local centre zoned corner site that includes the cafe, 2 retail shops, a wellness centre, small bar and 33 residential dwellings?
Thank you. Ms Hughes?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for the question, Ms Tarker. Car parking and servicing arrangements are, again, one of the issues that the City is paying close attention to. Just because an applicant proposes a number of bays on street or in the vicinity, it doesn't necessarily mean they always automatically get counted by the City. That is part of the assessment that the officers are doing with our traffic engineers at the moment.
Thank you. Each night, 7 days per week, Adair Parade is full to capacity for existing street parking to meet the needs of the existing 1, 2 and 3 bedroom units on the street. There are 11 blocks of flats on Adair Parade. I've door knocked every one of them. There is presently no commercial uses on Adair Parade. The amended plans still show a significant parking shortfall, and the applicant is relying on street parking for businesses operating the commercial and retail shops, their customers, commercial and retail deliveries and residential visitors for the 33 residential dwellings. Accordingly, has the City of Stirling undertaken a street parking capacity analysis of Adair Parade of an evening in terms of assessing this application? If so, then can this analysis be released? If not, why hasn't such an analysis been done?
Thank you. Ms Hughes?
Through you, Mr Mayor, thank you for the question, Ms Tarker. In relation to the parking that is provided by this development, if you recall, the original plans had the right number of bays on site. However, they were allocated to a higher proportion to the residential uses rather than the commercial uses. The plans that have been resubmitted are still showing that sort of similar same allocation, so that is one of the issues that officers are considering at the moment. With regards to sort of a parking needs analysis or an analysis of the issues in the local area, we're aware that parking is problematic through this area. I will have to wait and speak to my traffic engineers to find out whether or not we have any specific data on that, though.
Okay, thank you.
Yes?
Isn't it true that the reason the applicant cannot prevent overlooking into private rear yards of neighbours and cannot meet the parking requirements, the waste collection requirements and the commercial loading bay requirements because the proposed development is overbulked, overheight and double the allowable plot ratio?
Thank you for that question, and quite simply that was the City's submission on it, which is why it is now being reconsidered and those amended plans will come back to Council.
Thank you for your support.
Thank you. And I will rule just to extend public question time. We've just reached time. I'll rule to extend it for you, Ms Jack. Lucky last. There's Yes. Got a hand up the back. Name and suburb, please.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors, staff. Leisha, Jack, Karrinyup. At the last council meeting on the 30th of, at the council meeting on the 30th of May, Mayor, you stated that a vegetation management plan was required for the Mount Lawley Golf Club lease, but their current in-force lease includes no requirement for a vegetation management plan. Can you please clarify if they have to have a vegetation management plan in their lease now or not? And if not, why was the requirement removed when it was variated?
Thank you for that. Ms Hawkins?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Ms Jack. So yes, Council approved a variation to the lease in August 2021, which provided an option of a further term to the 30th of June 2044. Now, the further term is subject to the club submitting a tree and vegetation management plan, so that is in the lease now from that variation in August 2021.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Question 2. According to the minutes of the Ordinary Council meeting on the 7th of August 2021, it says, the City will be required to seek consent to the proposed variation of the lease of the Mount Lawley Golf Club from the Minister for Lands in accordance with Section 18 of the Lands Administration Act 1997 as the lease pertains to Crown land. My question is, have any recent lease amendments by the Council in relation to the Mount Lawley Golf Club been submitted to the Minister for Lands for approval? And if so, when did the variations come into force?
Thank you. Ms Hawkins?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thanks, Ms Jack. With regards to the lease option, we checked with the Department of Lands and Heritage at the time of bringing the variation, and they confirmed that the Minister of Lands would only need to approve if the option of the further term is exercised by the club. So it wasn't required when Council approved the variation, it would only be required if the club seek that further term.
But didn't it get extended to?
The variation was approved by Council, but it's an option to take that further term. It's only if the club choose to take that further term at 2029 that the Minister of Lands is required to give approval.
Okay, so that's not set in concrete then, that they're going to take it to that time. Okay. Interesting.
And your third question.
Okay. According to the Mount Lawley Golf Club's 2015 master plan on page 18, about the 18th hole, they're talking about the trees on the fairway. And it says, encroaching trees on the right crowd the tee shot, and while some recent removal has helped, more needs to be done. This is 2015 master plan. So I'm assuming those trees that they recently removed were prior to 2015. Did the City provide approval for those, a proper approval for those trees to be removed?
Thank you for that question. I'm guessing we'll have to respond to you in writing for that one. We'll take that on notice and respond to you in writing.
Good, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. And who else would like to come up? Miss Nowak. Welcome home.
Thank you. I'm sure everyone missed me. Good evening, Mayor Irwin, councillors. A question without notice. I could have two. I'm still a bit sleep deprived. In July of 2022, a viewing tower went up on Burrows Road at Karrinyup. It had a 12-month approval. When can we expect it to come down?
Thank you for that question. Mr Roddish.
Thanks, Mr Mayor, and thanks, Ms Noak, for the question. You're right, it went to Council on the 14th of June last year, Ms Noak, right near my birthday. That's why I remember it. Now, the
just
viewing
a subtle
tower,
hint, everyone. Did everyone get that?
Ms Noak, the applicant has made contact with the City. and in the likelihood that they will resubmit to extend the approval, our compliance officers were onto the case and did make contact with them, and that discussion has been held. I believe that they will make an application shortly, but we will make sure to follow that up. I don't believe there's intention for them to remove the tower, and that we're up to council to consider an extension.
Would it be facetious of me to say that's what we expected?
You just did.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have listed. There being no further, thank you, everyone. I'll now move on to item 8, application for leave of absence. Councillor Migdale has requested a leave of absence, as noticed in the agenda. Are there any other requests for leave of absence? No? Then can I please, I'll just check. Has the other one already been moved and seconded in a previous meeting, or do I need to have a mover and a seconder? Yeah, so if I can have a mover and a seconder to accept that leave of absence. Move Councillor Sandri, seconder Councillor Olo, and just a show of hands to accept that leave of absence. All councillors, thank you. That's unanimous. Move to item 9, confirmation of the minutes. Councillors, can I have a mover and a seconder to accept the minutes of the ordinary council meeting of the 30th of May? Move Councillor Kristovich, second Councillor Criado, and a show of hands to accept those minutes, councillors. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Announcements by the presiding member. I'll have one shortly, but firstly I'll ask Councillor Michael Dudek if you'd like to do your announcement. If you...
Yep. The federal government accredited product stewardship program Mobile Muster has awarded the City of Stirling top honours as the highest performing local government in Western Australia for the collection and recycling of mobile phones and their accessories, with the city being awarded WA's top recycler of 2023. The City of Stirling is a leader in this recycling arena, having previously been awarded the Mobile Muster WA top local government in 2015, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020 and 2022. Each year, Mobile Muster recognises the top collectors in each state or territory at the Australian Local Government Association National General Assembly.
Well done. Thank you for reading that out. I would also like to make an announcement. I'm very pleased to announce that the City of Stirling has won gold at the Australasian Reporting Awards, the ARAs, for our 2021-22 annual report for accountability and transparency in strategic performance reporting. The City of Stirling also won Best in Sector, and by that I mean the best annual report in the local government sector in Australasia. The City competed against 35 local governments across the Asia-Pacific region through the ARA, which benchmarks these annual reports against criteria based on world best practice. The 21-22 annual report presents the City's entire financial and operational performance for the year against the priorities outlined in the Strategic Community Plan and the Corporate Business Plan. This win is the 9th consecutive year the City's annual report has won a gold award from the ARA and our first Best in Sector, making us also a finalist in the coveted Report of the Year. These results highlight the City's position as a leader in the sector, holding more gold awards than any other West Australian local government. Winning this prestigious award is an outstanding achievement for the City. I'd like to congratulate all of the staff that were involved in the preparation of the 21-22 annual report. It was a magnificent team effort across the whole of the City. Well done to you all. Thank you, everyone. Item 11, unresolved business from previous meetings. I have nil. 12, reports and recommendations from committee. Item 12.1 CG1 does need to be pulled out for an alternative recommendation to be moved. All other order items can be moved on. I'm just reading out my notes. I don't need to read those. There I go. Councillors will first deal with the items from the Audit Committee meeting. Once these have been resolved, we'll move on to the Community and Resource Committee. So we're on audit first. And we've got CG1 being pulled out. Councillors, are there any others that you wish to pull out this evening? Councillor Dudek?
Is this just from Audit Committee?
This is just from Audit Committee.
No, that's...
Thank you. In that case, we will go to 12.1 CG1. I'll go to the Chair of the Committee, Councillor Lagan.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll move the alternative recommendation on the running sheet, but was also part of the white paper that councillors received. Do you want me to read it out, or...?
Yeah, I think if you read it out, just so we've got the...
Okay, so the alternative is that council receives the quarterly risk management report. That point 2 is council adopts the amended City of Stirling Risk Management Register and associated key risks indicators and risk treatment plans with semi-annual reporting to Council as shown in attachment 4. Point 3, the Council endorses the Accountability Sterling Action Plan for 2023 to 25. Point 4, the Council endorses the business unit managers to review their service risks against the City's strategic risk appetite, key risk indicators and risk treatment plans, and that a high-level service risk profile is presented at the next Audit Committee. And point 5, that an elected member workshop be held to consider the City's strategic risk register prior to the end of 2023.
Thank you. And seconded, Councillor Sandri. Is there anyone opposed? Question, Councillor Ree?
Given the comments made in the state government by the Auditor General that perhaps some of these could be done with the public, I don't see why, and they suggested that not all the things in the Audit Committee need to be behind closed doors. So whether or not, while we've got in here that should be a workshop, I think in this day and age of accountability and responsibility and transparency, that it didn't need for all these items to be actually behind closed doors. So whether that can be considered somewhere when these things are attached, please, because we do actually, every time someone asks for money, well, certain people ask for money, we ask them to do a risk assessment. So we should be
understand
showing.
the question. I'll just get Mr Blanchard to provide a response.
Thank you, through you, Chair. Firstly, it is open to Council to resolve to deal with something confidentially or not, so that power resides with Council. Secondly, the Minister has indicated that in the second tranche of Local Government Act reform that further clarity will be provided on those circumstances in which Council should resolve to put things behind closed doors. So I do understand that the legislation will change and that the City will be required to deal with more matters in public.
Thank you. Do we actually have a time frame on that, given that we have a new minister, and secondly, they're trying to put changes through before the October election, which means they have to be in Parliament by July? Do we have any indication at all?
As in, is it in this tranche of changes?
You're testing my memory here, Mr Mayor. I understand that it's not in this tranche of changes. Tranche 2 is due to be before Parliament in November of this year.
And we can seek feedback from the Minister and find out when that is and follow up for you. If there's no one opposed, then I will put this item. Move Councillor Lagan, seconded Councillor Sandri. You can go to the vote. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. That now brings us to the balance of reports. Councillor Lagan, as chair of the committee, would you like to move the balance of those reports from Audit Committee?
Mr Mayor, I move the balance of the report.
Seconded, Councillor Kristovich. That was a little bit casual. And I will now put the balance of reports. If you'd like to go to the vote, councillors. That's it. Everyone just relax. I was just giving him a moment. All right, we'll go to the vote. Show of hands, please, councillors. And that is unanimous. Thank you. Members of the gallery and those viewers at home, the remainder of the Audit Committee recommendations were adopted by exception resolution. We'll move on to the Community and Resource Committee items. Any alt recs provided to governance prior to midday have been included in your running sheets. And there were some alt recs that were provided in Friday bags, so some of you would have those. Councillors, would you like to pull any of these items out? Councillor Ree?
Yes, please. I'd like to pull out 12.2 FPA1 on page 52.
Yep.
And 12.2 GO1 review of delegations on page 87. And 12.2 GOV2, which I think has come out anyway, on page 151, please.
Thank you. Any others that need to be pulled out? Councillor Dudek?
Thank you. Can I just pull out 12.2 PS1 on page 47?
PS1, yes. Any other indications? Councillor Sandri?
I don't want to debate it, but 12.2 ES1, please. Just for the vote.
Thank you. If there's no other indication, we'll start with that one, 12.2 ES1. As chair of the committee, Councillor Hatton, would you like to move the committee recommendation?
Yes, Mr Mayor, I'd like to move that the committee recommendation be accepted.
Thank you. And a seconder for that, please. Seconded Councillor Kristovich. There is no one opposed, I'm assuming, for that one. It was just to go to the vote. That was the only reason it was pulled out. So I will put that now. 12.2 ES1. I think we've got one to go, have we? Councillor Meekdale? Yep, done. So that is carried with was voting for and Councillor Sandri voting against. Go to item 12.2 PS1, the feasibility of community battery project on page 47. Councillor Hatton is chair of the committee.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move that the officer's recommendation be accepted on that too.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Kristovich, is there anyone opposed or is it a question?
Wanted to move an amendment, if possible. Just taking out the last line, which says, which will reduce carbon emissions from the network and improve the reliability of the electricity grid, just so we don't presuppose the outcome.
Thank you. What I can do is just test that. So can I just check with the mover and second if you're just happy to accept taking that line out? It doesn't change the intent. It just adds a reason. Councillor Hatton, I'm checking with you. Are you reading? Yep.
We're still digesting that. I don't know, maybe that... Yeah. I'm trying to get the feel of the room. Yeah, could I get a comment from the staff on that, please, whether it changes the intent or whether it embellishes it or what happens, if I may?
Yeah. I don't think it changed the intent. Mr Murphy?
Yeah, through you, Mayor, that's correct. I don't think it changes the intent either, so we wouldn't object to it as officers.
Happy to accept, thanks.
Yep. All right, so the mover and second are happy to accept that, so there's no one opposing it at this stage, unless someone is opposed to that. Is that a question?
Yes, it is. Is that what the officers have accepted as well?
Yes.
Did I just hear that? Oh,
They don't
okay,
have to
fine.
accept it, they just said
I
it doesn't
wondered
change the
if they
intent.
said the
Yep. Yep. Great, so we'll put that to the vote. That is unanimous. Thanks, councillors. We'll go to 12.2 FPA1. It's been pulled out. The cost and schedule of maintenance program. Councillor Hatton is chair of the committee.
Yes, Mr Mayor, I move that the officer's recommendation be accepted.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Meekdale. Is there anyone opposed or is it a question, Councillor Ree? You're opposed? Councillor Ree, I'm just checking. Are you opposed? Yeah. Okay. Councillor Hatton, if you'd like to open debate.
During the committee meeting, we did discuss the overload there is on ageing facilities. It was carried at committee. I think I'll leave it open for Councillor Ree or others to debate.
Thank you. Councillor Meekdale seconding.
Nothing at this time.
Thank you. Councillor Ree, over to you.
Thank you. Although it's difficult to oppose a note, because a note is just a note, which is interesting, but I'd take you to page 56, which was very disappointing, which we've raised a couple of times since 2019 to have it reviewed, about the drinking fountains, air conditioning, heating, cool rooms, and now we've got water fountains, we've got solar panels, we've got scoreboards. I think, especially scoreboards, I mean, they're outside. People, anyone in the community can use them. They run over them and run into them and do all sorts of inappropriate language on them. And the poor clubs, especially transient clubs that are only there for football, and that happens in the cricket season, and they've got to pay for it if they've got to use it. I mean, from the licence and the leasee forum that we had, that was one of their concerns, huge concern about paying for things that are outside. Even the water fountains originally weren't in there because they said, when the bowling club goes, they could take a water fountain with them, which I failed to see where a bowling club would go, and the water fountain is actually plumbed in. So I still find that difficult that it's not accepted as part of the maintenance. We asked for this to be reviewed, and that's from 2019. That's 4 years ago that the issue was raised, and I I think from the licence and the leasee forum that we had, that was one of the issues of where we're going with this. And I know that some of the points were raised, which on the white paper, which unfortunately a lot of the residents don't get to see, and the ratepayers and the sporting people. But I just don't feel that we're addressing what we need to do with the increased cost of living, the increase in electricity. There's less volunteers, everything's going up, and we're not sort of doing the right thing by clubs. So I'll leave it to you, Mr. Mayor, whether or not I have to do a whole new one thing. One is whether a notice of motion to address all these up and coming concerns. Secondly, as I said at the time, whether or not note is nothing, but not nothing.
No, I get it.
It's
So
note-
leave it with me.
whether or not
Let me
we
give you
wait for
a response and see how I go.
Whether we wait until the leasee and the licence report comes up before, technically this is not approving what they've done. So if we wait for the licence and leasee report to come up, that's when I could put a motion up for that. So that's what I'm asking you, or whether or not
No, I
to
understand what
address
you're
it
asking.
now.
I understand what you're asking, and I actually am in total agreement with you, Councillor Ree. It's an uncomfortable position. But you have brought this up so many times, and I know every councillor around this room deals with it all the time. Are we better off, I'll get some direction here from the Director, are we better off holding this for 2 weeks and asking that this schedule come back with an option for those other items to be included, rather than have another motion come up from Councillor Ree, because in her defence she's put it up several times? Or are we better off waiting for that and dealing with it through the licence? So I'll take either Mr Quirk or Mr Murphy to give us some direction here.
Through you, Mr Mayor, there is a council workshop on the 3rd of July to discuss leases and licences. So I would have thought that's a great opportunity to discuss all of Councillor Ree's concerns. And I know through Ms Hawkins the intent is for then a report to come back with any structural changes to our leases and licences.
So I think that the advice is we note the current cost schedule. There'll be a workshop on that, which we can discuss all those other items. And then obviously if there's extra money that needs to go, it can go through a budget review and council can determine that. You happy with that?
Not really. I would like everybody got told at the time, those 2 different meetings, that they would be given the feedback as to the overall summaries. Now, they haven't got it, we haven't got it. I think we need to get it first, and I think as a duty of care to all those sporting people who took the time to come, we should have that.
So let me get your
report
feedback
now,
on it. I'm pretty sure that...
before the workshop.
Yep, no, I'm happy for that, but I think we're getting off this topic. So I think we're better off noting this, taking that offline, but I can guarantee you Mr Quirk's team has been back and talked to all the teams and given them feedback. So we'll follow up after the meeting and find out what specifically is the problem. We got a workshop.
We should have a report to us based on that before we have the workshop, so we actually know. Otherwise it gets all muddied the waters.
Sure, it can be distributed before the workshop. You got it? No. Councillor Farrelly?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. In regard to the, it's a response to the notice of motion as put forward by Councillor Reid requesting a report on the cost and schedule of maintenance program for sporting facilities. Wembley Downs Sports Facility always seems to be underwater, the soccer club, whenever we have a significant downpour. How does that come into this list where it might be other facilities as well around the city, where we need to start really seriously looking at something in regard to the maintenance to make sure that we prevent these occurrences becoming a regular thing?
Thank you, and that is noted. Mr Murphy?
So through you, Mr Mayor. Thanks for raising the question, Councillor Farrelly. We are looking at that as a separate issue, as a capital issue, essentially. Is there more works we can do to protect the building, that particular building, from flooding, or is there better options like rebuilding? So, and I know you've raised it a number of times, so we are looking at it as a separate issue, and we might bring something forward in mid-year review if that options assessment comes up with a reasonable solution. So that's an ongoing piece of work.
Thank you for that, Mr Director. Through you, Mr Mayor, is it possible for something in writing to come to the next council meeting, before the next council meeting on that, so that we've got it recorded that there is going to be attention given to those
So I think, again, it's a separate issue to this, noting the cost
Probably
and schedule of
maybe if
maintenance.
it's not in this,
And I don't think it needs to come back to council. I think the officers are dealing with the club at the moment.
All right, in the
And-
budget or
But they'll
something.
certainly report back to the ward
thank you.
councillors, elevating the ground, maybe lift the whole butlers a couple of metres. Thanks, councillors. I'll put that one, I'll go to you, Councillor Hatton. Do you need to close debate on that?
I will close debate. Again, it's only a note in the committee recommendation put through from council, from the officers. It's only a note, and I think we've got the workshop in July, so I'm happy for that to go ahead through that process. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, I'll put that. Moved Councillor Hatton, seconded Councillor Migdale. If you can go to the vote. That is unanimous. Thanks, councillors. We'll go to 12.2 Gov 1, review of the delegated authority. It's been pulled out. Councillor Hatton as chair of the committee. I think there was an alt rec on the white paper.
Yeah, I'll read, Mr Mayor, I'll read the alt rec if that's all right. Is that what you like?
Yes, please.
Yep, good. That council memo one that's not the one. Number one, that in accordance with section 5.18 of the Local Government Act, actually, I probably don't need to read it out, it's up there, and
Sure.
essentially what it is pulling apart what was already there. There's no change, it just gives more clarity to the item, and I'd like to move that be accepted.
Thanks. And Councillor Lagan has seconded that. Is there anyone opposed? Councillor Ree? Have you got a question or are you opposed to it? Okay. Councillor Hatton?
Again, it was carried, well, actually, I don't know that it was carried. Let me just check. Yes, was carried. At committee, again, I support the what's in front of us there. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Sure. Councillor Lagan?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I support the alternative recommendation. It gives us time to have a look at the complexities, to also look at the delegation, where it sits, what committee, and it did drive me to go back and read whole sections of the Local Government Act again that I hadn't visited, and it's more confusing than ever. But I fully support this, gives us more time, and I think gives us a little bit more security in that review.
Thank you. Mr Blanchard's offered to sit down with you and spend some more time explaining it, if you'd like.
I'll pass on that, thank you.
Councillor Ree, you're opposed?
Yes, thank you. I don't believe, I've made
Sorry,
a
can
lot
I
of
just, Councillor Hatton,
comments
can I just get you to turn your mic off? That's all right. Councillor Ree, keep going.
I made a lot of comments at committee as to why I think some of these issues shouldn't be without picking the whole lot of them all over again, which didn't get addressed. But on page 137 or 38 of the policy, it's with regard to the variation and the extension. And as we know from Corrine and a couple of other little issues that we've had running around, I would like to know why the monetary fund, the monetary maximum one was taken out, and secondly, there doesn't seem to be any fallback position, which I believe that was discussed at audit when we looked at our risk, that of some of these issues, this is not addressing what the audit committee said, and I'm not quite sure why it's being deleted.
Thank you. Mr Blanchard? Ms Hawkins?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Ree. With regards to that, the change to that delegation, we currently have the two elements. So we have a lump sum contract, and that stays with regards to that valuation. So there's a tender, there's a lump sum value, and if there was any change to scope, that would come back to council. Where we were having difficulties against our legislation was where we have period supplies, and that's why we're recommending that change. So we give a value, a recommended value or an estimated value when we bring that for approval. But each year through the budget process, council is then approving what that value is, so then it is subject to change. So there's original tender, which will still come to council with an estimated contract value. Through annual budget processes, then council will approve effectively the spend against that contract. And then we'll do that regular reporting back to council on what that is.
Happy with that,
help? I don't know
Councillor?
if that helps.
No, not really. Through you, could you, how are we reporting back to council? Because when I asked for clarification a number of times on Bennett Park, which I'm still waiting for those questions to be answered, of the breakdown in the cost and why it was delayed, and I think Corrine was much the same. So where does it, they never came back to council. I asked for them to come back to council, still waiting for the breakdown of why the costs were higher. So if you're saying it comes back to council, this doesn't say it comes back to council.
So all of those came back to council. The item came back to council in that case, specific case, where council actually determined to increase the amount and were given the reasons for the cost overrun. It was a council agenda item from my memory.
No, because my question on notice actually asked for the breakdown, the cost and how it got increased. I never ever received that. And I do believe Kareen was the same. But in here, it says to the total contract value is less than 500. So what I'm also saying is it's got a value in it here. Now we're taking out a value. So we've got two separate things, and I can appreciate taking into the tender, and while it may change, where does it come back? Is it coming back to audit, or is it coming back through planning? Is it coming back through infrastructure? And secondly, why don't we have a value on it now? Because that, to me, is a bit of a worry and would go against what I said with our risk management and our audit committee.
I am very confident in my understanding of the time I've been sitting in this seat that we approve the original tender amounts or the estimates. Any variations of those, while it's under that amount that's been approved by council, can be dealt with under delegation. But if they exceed that or there's a cost overrun, it is brought straight back to this chamber. It comes back to council. You either see it through the budget process or as an agenda item. I can't think of any example where it wouldn't have.
If you read it, one of the comments made is the total contract value includes the value of the variation or the extension. That's all now been deleted.
Ms.
I'm
Hawkins?
cautious about deleting some of these things and cautious about the delegation therein, given the things that have actually happened.
Ms. Hawkins?
Through the Mayor. Thanks, Councillor Ree. As the Mayor has said, the budget would be determined by Council to start with, so we would bring the budget to Council for a particular project. Then the tender would come to Council in line with that budget. If that is different, we would then come back to Council for approval. We would not, as officers, be able to approve something that was out with that budget.
Thank you, Councillor. Does anyone else like to speak on this? If not, I will go back to Councillor Hatton as Chair. Would you like to close?
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, look, I'm happy with the way it's presented there, and I'd like to, again, move the committee recommendation, thank you, with the alt in front of us.
Yep, it's already been done, so that closes debate. Move Councillor Hatton, seconded Councillor Lagan. I'll put that to the vote. And we've got one to go, I think. Councillor Farrelly. Thank you. And that is carried. So we have Councillor Ree voting against, all our councillors voting for. Brings us to item 12.2 GOV2 and the elected members entitlement policy amendment. I will ask Councillor Hatton as the chair of the committee. I asked for an alternative rec to be sent around, so have you seen that? So if not, with your indulgence, I'm happy to move it myself. I'll put it on the screen.
Mr Mayor, thank you. Just a bit of preamble, very short. There was a little bit of contention about what was brought forward to us by by SAT, and I think there's been a little bit of thinking about it, and I'm very happy to move the alt rec.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Councillor Lagan, you're happy to second that, I can see.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone opposed to this? Yep. Sure.
Whilst I'd like to oppose some of the things in the policy, that's not what's actually on the agenda tonight. In accordance with it, it's only revising certain bits, and other bits should be revised. I would like to have put up a motion, but I was told not to, and I don't see why. I asked whether or not the city could actually go and write to the Salaries Tribunal itself, the Mayor, the city, on behalf of the councillors.
So I'm happy, if you'd like to put an amendment on here, number 3, that the Mayor write to to the SAT and the new minister
Yes.
to express their disappointment at the 1.5% increase? I'm
Yes.
happy to do it for you, councillor.
Thank you. And more. Oh. The mayor writes to.
Yep, is there anything?
SAT
We'll get that.
and the Department of Local and the Minister of Local Government. And
Yeah,
the Minister of
the new
Local
minister.
Government.
Yep.
Minister of Local Government.
Keep talking while you let them do this.
I
Have
know,
you got any
well, I'm saying it as they try. With the.
They're quite capable over there. You keep going on. Have you got anything else you'd like to ask as a question?
The other thing I would say was it's not only with the thing, because if they're going to give workers a basic 4.9% rise, 4.25.
Yes, so councillor,
5.25.
Yep.
If they're going to give workers 5.25, we're only still working at half a cent an hour if you're doing your
so
job.
councillor, I'll do a bit of explaining. Yep, happy to take all of that on board.
And super.
Yeah, so
And that if they can pay super, if the state government, when you do DAPS, pay councillors tax, take out tax and pay superannuation, it's discriminating.
it's in there.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
but I don't know whether you want that in your
No,
tree.
it's in there. So I'll be really clear. This came about. It is not something new. Credit where credit is due. Councillor Lagan and Councillor Ree have been advocating for this for a long time, with council support. I was obviously not at that committee meeting, but I did listen to the recording, and it seemed like there was a complete unanimous view of this council that we should be advocating for this. So this alternative recommendation takes that into account and ensures that this council will have the opportunity in 2 weeks' time to vote to become eligible governing body, allowing us to make compulsory super payments to all of you, which makes perfect sense to lead the sector to do that. And I'm happy to write a letter to the Minister expressing all of those things, including those other things you talked about.
So with that, do we actually have to move that we are a governing body today?
No, so one of the reasons we put it in this format, Councillor Rees, is to ensure you don't make a decision, then go home and go, what's the implication? So we'll provide you some advice after this meeting, which means you will all be able to take your own independent advice in terms of tax agents or whoever you want to talk to, Councillor Kristovich, and and then in 2 weeks' time, the full report on that will come to council. We can make that decision. It's there. It is already there. It is all in there. Everything you wish for is in there, Councillor Ree, I promise you. It is. I know. So if there's no debate on that, Councillor Hatton and Councillor Lagan, can I check if you're happy to accept number 3?
Yeah, look, there's 3 parts to it really. It's the annual allowance, the ICT and the super, and we're probably looking at the ICT and super. I think Councillor Ree's point 3 strengthens the motion, and I do accept it.
Thank you. Councillor Lagan, you happy to accept that? Thank you. It's not open for debate. Are there any questions on this, Councillor Farrelly?
Well, I really take into account that I understand the offices or local government, it's 5.25 that came through. Is that correct? If you were within the local government?
We can take that all offline, Councillor. It's irrelevant to this motion,
Okay.
I think. So there's no one opposed. I'll put... And I'll now put that to the vote. Thank you, and that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Councillor Hatton, would you now like to move the balance of those reports from the Community and Resource Committee?
With pleasure, Mr Mayor. I move the balance of the reports.
And a seconder, Deputy Mayor Proud. I will now put the balance of reports, noting that Councillor Migdale is out of the chamber. Councillors, we'll just have a show of hands for that. Let's get that done. That is unanimous. Thank you. And we'll now move on to the Director Council items, starting with 13.1, formalised parking bays, West Coast Drive, Trigg. Councillor Farrelly. I'll just get Councillor Hatton to turn his mic off and get you to turn yours on, please.
Yes. Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to go with a recommendation by the officers, which is
The option 2, I think.
implementation of option 2 for the provision of parking along the southern section West Coast Drive, which means that there will be limestone either side with fencing that will provide some sort of support for, lack of erosion, but also allow animals and whatever to move through.
Thank you. And is there a seconder for that motion? Is that Councillor Kristovich? Is there anyone opposed? If not, I will put that item. And there we go. And we've got Councillor Migdale, who's still out of the chamber, but that is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Can I just acknowledge the officers for the quick turnaround on that one and thank them for their support in assisting the Coastal Ward councillors to get that done. 13.2, Sustainable Energy Action Plan, progress update. Councillor Ree would like to move that. Is there any seconder? Councillor Lagan, is there anyone opposed? Opposed or questions? Councillor Dudek?
I'd like to defer it if possible to the Community and Resources Committee pending further information.
Sure. I think Councillor Dudek's asked for a significant amount of information, other information that hasn't been received yet. Would that be correct?
Yes, correct.
And we're only receiving the progress, so yep, I don't think there's any issues with the timeline for that. Nope. Is there a seconder for that? Councillor Sandri. So that's just a deferral motion, just to hold it over to come back with more information. Can't hurt. So I'll put that to the vote. And that is unanimous, noting that Councillor Migdale's still out of the chamber. 13.3, City of Stirling Community Grants Program, page 182. Do I have a mover of the motion? Councillor Ree, moving the recommendation. Councillor Sandri, seconding that. Is there anyone opposed? Sure, I'll allow a question.
Bearing in mind, which we discussed at the Licence and Leases C meeting, which we look forward to that report.
That meeting must have gone for months, Councillor Ree.
It was 2 solid good meetings, 2 over 2 different days. It was wonderful. Totally different people come to each one apart from the staff, so it was exciting. One of the things is that, and I won't name any staff member because a couple of them were fantastic, so I hear, of sitting down with the sporting groups and showing them how to do it, and then the sporting groups telling them that it's not working, they can't do it on whatever machine, blah, 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 blah. So trying to simplify. I think we really have to do something about the grants, as we saw from the poor little multicultural talented children last council meeting. There is an issue of trying to get people to access it. I think we have to somehow make it a little bit more user-friendly. And I know it's not in here, but I think we need to address that.
The intent is, and it is in the actual report, there's a whole program that sits behind it, and support will certainly. And I think the thing with this is recognising it's a completely new system. Let's see how the clubs take it up. We're certainly going to get feedback back from the community and from the sporting clubs who access this, and it can be amended or changed or improved.
Maybe we should have actually have suggested that at the licensee thing, that they were changing the format so they're a little bit forewarned or something. Or maybe we could get the librarians to, or something, because they're really
This
good
is significantly wider than some sporting groups.
I know, but I mean, maybe we can get our librarians, because they're excellent of good customer service, to actually help people so they wouldn't all have to come into the city.
Noted. This is moved and seconded, and there is no one opposed. So with that, I will put that motion. While that is going to the vote, can I acknowledge the team? That is unanimous. That is carried. This is a significant body of work across the whole of the City of Stirling, so just acknowledging all of those who provided information and advice to this and bringing it together. Well done. Item 14, notice of motion for consideration. 14.1, a proposed notice of motion from Councillor Ree and Councillor Michael Dudek, the funding eligibility for sports travel assistance. Now, this is slightly unusual because I remember this at the council meeting. I think it was the last council meeting. I think it started with Councillor Dudek having a motion and then an amendment, and then it sort of all progressed. So what I will do is see where we go. So I'm pretty sure it started with Councillor Dudek, so I'll ask him to move a motion.
I'd like to move an amended motion I sent to governance earlier. So I'll read it out. That Council increases the funding eligibility for City of Stirling Junior Sports Travel Assistance from $100 to $250 per individual from 1st of January 2024, and that Council notes that a further report will be presented to Council in 2023 following a review of the Sports Travel Assistance grants to support participation in sport with a view to better target those who need it most.
So I haven't got the original one in front of me now, so if I can just see the council.
The original one, number 1, says immense community grants to include potential of seniors. That's actually changing the intent of the motion. My motion was separate, which actually said seniors. So we can't actually change that one. But
He
you
can,
can
so
add
as
that.
so just to be clear, he can do anything he wants because it's his motion, but we can always. It certainly wasn't. It was Councillor Dudek's right then. Councillor Ree,
I put up a separate motion.
I know
about
you
the
did. We
seniors.
haven't finished with this yet, but right now, Councillor Dudek can do whatever he likes. It's his motion. I would, no. Let me deal with it, Councillor Ree, if you just let me chair the meeting. That is a motion. What I would suggest now, Councillor Ree, would you like to second that and put an amendment on? A number 3.
I don't know
which
if
is,
that's legal, is it? That's, like,
trust me, I'm pretty good at this.
I'm not going to comment on that. I'll put number 1 back in, please.
Yeah, put number 1 in as number 3.
Well, what we're doing is deleting it. All you're doing is changing 2 from 400 to 250. Keeping 1, keeping 2, changing it to 250.
Stop it,
and then
Councillor
after
Ree.
the word.
It's a motion up on the board. If you'd like to second it and add your one in that you're worried about,
I am. Well, but I'm
put
not
it in.
there. Where is it?
It's coming. Can we have number 1 added into it, please? As number 3? It's on the screen below. That one? Just move it up the screen there. Yep. All right. What I'll ask is, even if you don't agree with it, Councillor Dudek, can I ask you to accept that and I'll put them separately? And that's going to save a heap of work for me tonight.
Yeah, if we can put it separately, that's fine.
There we go. And look, there we have it. Everyone's happy. Is there anyone opposed or would like anyone opposed to this? No? In that case, it's like being in a big canyon with an echo chamber, isn't it? Councillors, it has moved Councillor Dudek, seconded Councillor Ree. I will put all 3 of these separately. You can vote for whatever you like. Yep. So, councillors, we're going to do hands and we're going to start with number 1. The first one, I ask you to vote that we increase the funding eligibility for junior sports from 100 to 250. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Number 2, that council notes that a further report will be presented to council in 2023 following a review of the sports travel assistance grants to support participation in sport with a view to better target those who need it most. All those in favour? That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. And 3, that council amends the community grants program guidelines to include the potential of seniors to be included in the sports travel assessment.
Point of order, if I may. Can I do a point of order?
No, you can't because we're voting.
We
We're voting. You can either vote for or against.
well, there was no clarity on it. Anyway, go.
No, it was in the actual report. It was in the report. Thank you. So we're voting for seniors to be included in the sports travel assistance. All those in favour, please. Councillor Ree, Councillor Lagan, Councillor Ferrante, Councillor Hatton, Councillor Olo, Councillor Thornton, Councillor Criado, Councillor Farrelly, Councillor Kristovich, Deputy Mayor Proud, and against Councillor Sandri, Councillor Migdale, Councillor Dudek, Councillor Perkoff and myself. That is carried. So all of those are carried. Thank you, councillors. Well done. We'll now go to item 14.2, proposed notice of motion. Councillors, Councillor Elizabeth Ree, power costs to local governments, 241. Councillor Ree.
Sorry, my apologies. We didn't get an alternative, so that was good.
I was querying that.
Yeah, I know. That's why you're writing the letter. So the mayor, right, this, but
So can I ask for some clarity on this, with respect, Councillor Rees? So, are you just moving the recommendation or the motion you put up? So my query is, why wasn't there an alternative rec that acknowledged the fact that the huge increases did already? My concern is I'm going to look a bit silly writing to the Minister for Energy about something that's already happened, been and gone, and the huge increase didn't happen. Yep, Mr. Blanchard.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We only propose an alternative when we consider it's necessary. We still think it would be suitable for you to write, pointing out that it was unacceptable to propose a huge increase, notwithstanding that it wasn't adopted by the ERA.
Okay. Leave the wordsmithing to me on that.
the only other thing I would have raised was the fact when we spoke to the minister, the then minister, Tony Beauty, who was very, very good and understood.
No, I think
COVID,
the Minister for Energy hasn't changed.
Yeah. Well, at the. Is this same guy?
It's still Minister Johnson.
No, this is about sporting clubs. That under COVID, they gave allowances for all sorts of things for people and local government, but the actual sporting clubs actually got nothing. And one of the problems was the power.
Okay, so what we'll do
So you can add that to your letter, unless you want me to write it in here.
Yep, so what I'd like to do is just allow a little bit of leeway. I'm happy to liaise with you on some of the stuff that goes in the letter, remembering that I still have to sign it, and ask for a seconder for this recommendation.
Point of order first, Mr. Mayor. Point of order. I can't see part B. I just want to read part B.
Sure, I'll get Councillor Dudek as seconded. If we can move that out of the way. All right, is there anyone opposed to something along these lines? No one's opposed? I'm happy to do it.
I'm not opposed. I have a bit of a problem with A, proposed huge increase.
We've covered that already.
I know, but
I'm happy that we can cover that off in a letter to be able to say that it still shouldn't have been proposed and that we've got issues. Yeah. Is there questions or opposed? Councillor Lagan, you're a question too?
Yeah, I do. Look, from my reading of those points, we pretty much covered all those points in our energy policy, renewable energy policy. We've also talked about community batches, and we've also talked about power provision for sporting builders. To me, it looks like we're repeating stuff that we dealt with already in other notices or motions, both at council and committee.
Yeah, and I think I tend to agree with you, but if I can speak, I'd be happy to write a letter to the Minister. I think it'd be good to highlight some of those things, and I'd be happy to highlight those with the Minister, the work we are doing in that area too. Councillor Sandra, you got a question?
So, sorry, just to add to that, if you, I'm happy with that if it's included in your statement that we're already dealing with those items.
Yes.
In other spaces in the city, and that officers have written quite detailed reports. That's fine.
Yep. I'm going to use that artificial intelligence and ask them to write me a letter. Councillor Sandri.
ChatGPT, Mr. Mayor. Although I'm not sure we can use that at the City of Stirling. But anyway, my question is the letter too specific, and rather there's many things that we need to be speaking to the Minister of Energy about, and would it be worthwhile potentially...
No.
Okay.
I'm not requesting a meeting. Yeah, I'm happy to take any feedback. I think it's acknowledged that this letter can be broad. There's no one opposed. I will put that to the vote. Councillor Migdale sent me there once before. Didn't end well. Thank you. And I think we've got one to go, have we? Councillor Perkoff. And that is carried. We have Councillor Lagan, Councillor Migdale and Councillor... someone else. Okay, I haven't seen it yet. Councillor Sandri voting against. All other councillors, Criado, Dudek, Farrelly, Ferrante, Hatton, Kristovich, Olo, Perkoff, Proud, Ree, Thornton and myself voting for. That is carried. 14.3 proposed notice of motion. Councillor Criado, the upgrades to club rooms for female players.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's just that a report be presented to council on the number of clubs utilised by female sports teams and the nature of the upgrades that are required to make these facilities user-friendly for female players.
Thank you. Councillor Ferrante has seconded that. And I'll put that to the vote. It's just for a report. So,
I do believe that we actually had a report done a couple of years ago when we were looking
Sure.
at...
yeah. That's fine. That all the information will be included.
Not always.
Yep. Yes. We're waiting for a couple. Councillor Dudek, Councillor Farrelly. That is carried, and it is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Item 14.4, proposed notice of motion, Councillor Criado, on the Purple Bench program.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Again, that a report be presented to council on how many purple benches there are within the city and the feasibility of increasing the amount of purple benches within the city to have about 5 or 6 per suburb.
That's a lot of purple.
That's a lot. It's just a report. It's just a report.
Councillor Olo has seconded that. Have you got a question, Councillor Migdal?
Yes.
If I could,
Councillors?
please, just
Thanks.
ask a question. Would it be possible, if the mover and seconder would be okay with this, to incorporate something along the lines of having some type of communication campaign to accompany this? Because the reason I raise it is because we all know about blue trees and what they stand for, but not all residents know. So it loses power if we're doing something very, very worthwhile as this, if we don't communicate it to residents so they understand for maximum impact.
Sure, and this is just for the report to come back first, and I believe the report talked about the other sorts of benches and trees and those sort of things that could be included. So is there someone opposed? A question? I'll go to Councillor Farrelly and then Councillor Ferrante.
Yes, and probably a bit more communicating with the local councillors. Sometimes benches appear and you might be fully supported, but I think also there's areas where you probably would like to...
Yeah, I've seen one down on Scar Beach Road.
Not purple yet, though. Good purple. Good site for a purple bench.
Yes. Okay, Councillor Ferrante, have you got a question?
Mine was only if Councillor Grado could consider the locations in the report that we might need to update some bus stops, and they might be a good place to start with some bus stops.
Yes, certainly. I think the report actually made it clear that there could also be other things, that it may not just be that's that purple bench, but also an opportunity to explain what those different programs are and why they're there. Good work. I'll put that to the vote. That's unanimous. Thanks, councillors. And Councillor Criado, you must have been bored last week. Your proposed notice of motion, 14.5, councillor.
My fellow councillors, really these were meant to be staged, but they all came together, so my apologies. I would just like to that a report be presented to council considering a greening program in the Balga ward, and based on the results of the program, it be rolled out to other areas in consultation with the ward councillors.
Councillor Ferrante, seconding. Yeah, your question.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think this council spent many, many years and a lot of money on the Better Suburbs project, which was centred around the Balga ward, which was meant to look at things like this. Did it, number one, because I can't recall, and two, if it did, why aren't we doing it as part of that?
Thank you. My understanding is the Better Suburbs was more about the planning outcomes rather than the green. It was supposed to be.
Originally, it was meant to be exactly this. This is how it originated. So I have a question on that because I don't want to create another Better Suburbs rollout as a result of this motion.
Thank you. We'll get Mr Rodich to... Yeah, some of this probably predates you.
Through you, Mr Mayor, Councillor Sandry, the Better Suburbs may have begun like that, I guess, consideration, but it became more of a, I guess, a planning framework, guiding strategy to informing local planning scheme number 4, and I guess consolidation of activity corridors, neighbourhood centres, and I guess not spreading density through our suburbs.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you. Mr Mayor, can I have an undertaking that this will not evolve into that?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes. And look, and I think it's really important, whilst these things are driven by a particular reason and a ward, I'm sure there's other councillors who are acknowledging they've got greening issues. This isn't about just being one ward. It's certainly about providing that, that rollout through other wards. Councillor Migdale?
Sorry, Mr Mayor, and further to that, just a question. Do we not have the urban forest plan for this very reason?
Yeah, I think the intent of this was to really look at it and start to separate those areas that have a real underscore in the canopy compared to the rest of the city of Stirling, to have a look at strategies to green them. I understand what you're saying. Yes. Councillor Farrelly?
Yeah, really to pick up on where you were just stating how there are other areas that really have a problem with forest canopy. I think this is a good way to start, but I'd like to see somewhere in that motion that we, where we really are isolating those areas, and it might be within and between wards, that really need to have an increase in forest canopy.
So, councillors, I did read this as, whilst it was initiated from Councillor Corrado for that very reason, that there's a, we acknowledge that Balgore was one of those poor outcomes in terms of planning that has chopped all the trees down, that this part of the report that would come back, it's acknowledged in the report that you'd look at all those pockets and start to really have a targeted approach as much as that shotgun approach.
So, ask, which is a bit of a pet project of mine, when we...
Are we getting off topic? I think we're getting off topic.
No, in a way it's a side topic.
It's only, councillor, this is for a report to come back, so...
Yeah, but I think, could we actually start to incorporate that into some of the planning that goes into those places like Tamala Park? Because this is where we could have...
No, I think you're going way too broad on this. This is very specific. It's for a report to come back.
Projects that support tree retention or, things like that. I think we need to look at it as our strategic thing.
Yes,
okay.
Which is very different to this, that's all. Councillor Hatton, then I have Councillor Sandri.
Yeah. Mr Mayor, could I ask that it be noted that maybe included in this report there be something on the lopping or the maintenance of tree verge trees and park trees and similar trees.
Again, I think we're getting completely off topic.
The reason is that we talk about canopy. What is canopy? Quite often, the trees that are maturing to 5 years or more, they aren't actually...
Councillor, I'm really cautious that one, we have an open debate on this. I'm taking questions. You are now debating an item that isn't even on the agenda.
Okay.
So, I understand what your point, but I think we can take all of that offline, and it forms part of our urban forest strategy and the way we do our tree planting and all those other initiatives. This is specifically about the greening program, targeted greening programs. So if there's no one opposed, I would like to put this. A report will come back and there'll be plenty of opportunity at that stage to debate. That is unanimous. Thank you, councillors. Notice a motion for consideration at the next meeting. Councillor Ree, I'll start with you.
Thank you. That a report be presented to the Community and Resource Committee in July with regard to the feasibility of a community garden around the Innaloo Sports Club, please.
Thank you. Is there any other notice of motion? Councillor Migdale? Dan, just your microphone, thanks.
I may or may not be able to see it from here.
If I can read it for you if you can't see it.
Sure.
If I can, well, if it comes up.
Yes, we are, Councillor Lagan.
Can you read that? Would you like me to read it?
Can you make it bigger, please?
How are we going?
That council requests that the Mayor writes to Western Power to request that street lighting within the city be maintained to a higher standard by replacing globes operating at under 40%. Shall I read the reason?
No, it's self-explanatory.
Perfect.
Happy with that?
Thank you.
Councillors, are there any other notice of motion? Councillor Ferrante?
Yeah.
Hang on.
Mr. Mayor.
I'll just... Perth now, are you listening? Thank you. Okay, Councillor Ferrante, off you go.
Bell Tower Times, here we come. Whenever you're ready, Leanne. No.
We might need a drum roll.
NASA. It's a space station. Okay, the report be presented to Council regarding a solar farm and methane plant at the Hertha Reserve Old Tip site, and the power dividends be passed back to the ratepayers in the form of cash rebate or reduction in rates. This will be primarily from the feed-in tariffs and savings of power payments for the use of the City of Stirling office building, feeding in directly from the solar farm. So I move.
Probably just rule that out of order, but we'll leave it for now. I think there was one over this way. I do have one to finish then. As part of the city's early engagement on the future redevelopment of the Karrinyup Library site and car park, the city make contact through the Mayor, that's myself, with the owners of Karrinyup Shopping Centre to discuss their intentions for the shopping centre site. And the reason is, as we've seen the last few weeks, the library building is nearing end of life, and along with community engagement sessions and feedback received, the city has a clear strategy on the importance of libraries. Any development of this site needs to be in consultation with the owners of the whole of the Karrinyup site to achieve the best community and the development outcome. It's important to ensure a library and community centre with accessible free car parking is maintained in any redevelopment. Possibly.
If I may, in that, can we have that there would be no action taken until we have, or we refer to a community consultation?
No, I will not accept that. We have done extensive consultation. This is just to have a discussion. The reason I've done this is to make it very clear there is nothing to hide here, but there is obviously quite a poor outcome right now, and we need to have the opportunity to make contact with the owners of that whole site. Following any discussion, it will be reported back through council in an open forum. There's nothing to hide.
Mr Mayor, if I may further ask a question then, is this in regard to changes within the ownership of the corner block on the...
It's not, there's nothing predetermined.
No, what I'm saying is because there seems to be a difference now with the change of ownership of that last little block on the northwestern side, North Court.
Yeah, it's a nom that is not up for debate. I'm just putting this up, so it's not up for debate. There is no intention or anything to do with anything. It is all owned by the Karrinyup Shopping Centre, and we own a large portion in the middle, which is this context. Councillor said no other...
Can I just...
No, you can't.
Well,
it's mine, not... Councillor...
Are we still going to get a library at Karrinyup? Is that still part of the premise?
Quite obviously, in the NOM, it says...
Good.
It is important to ensure our library and community centre with an accessible free car parking is maintained. I will go on to item 16, questions by members of which due notice has been given. There is nil. 17, new business of an urgent nature, nil, and matters behind closed doors at item 18, which is nil. That brings us to item 19, closure. I declare the meeting closed at 7:58. Thank you, everyone, for your promptness tonight. There'll be some very happy people who can now go watch an incredible game of sport. The covers are just coming